Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come in, come in, come in. This is Tamika's Den. I am Tamika. And this is Sistas, y'all. Okay, we are back again for another episode. This is season 4, episode 18, Enemy of Mine. Guys, I'm going to keep it real with y'all. This episode didn't do much, okay? It did not do much at all, especially after the episode we had last week. That was a little bit better, all right? Just being real, okay, the only thing I really was happy about came towards the end, and the thing that pissed me off all over again was at the end as well. So let's go ahead and get into it, y'all. So we basically picked up right where we left off with Zach and this daggone jail, right? With this DA coming in and telling him about the 10 to 15 years. And Zach is losing it, understandably so. He's like, I can't believe this. This can't be real. Andy's asking, is there anything they could do? Of course, Zach is saying this is some bullshit. So Andy says, let her go make a few calls and she'll be right back. And, Fatima's trying to be the calm one. We know that's how it goes with them, right? One is going to be going off and the other one is going to be trying to stay calm and say, we going to figure this out. And he's saying there's nothing to figure out. He's still saying this is not his kid. And what I'm not understanding is why we have not got a daggone DNA test yet. Okay, why are we not hearing that it is 99.9, Zach's baby, all right? And that's what I don't understand about this whole thing of he's back on probation because of the back child support or whatever when his probation was done. Like, get out of here. But anyway, that's the way they wrote it, right? And so, basically he's starting to lose it. He's saying that, he finally thought he was in a good place. And every time he thinks something is good, here go, some mess. And then he's bringing up Hayden and what happened with him, and she's telling him to shush, and he like, okay, so now all of a sudden you want me to shush? She was like, yeah, they could hear you, keep your voice low or whatever, and she was like, I get it, babe, I understand. She was like, just let Andy figure this out. And so he says, shit is always falling apart. And she was like, nothing is going to fall apart. And he's basically telling her she don't know that. And she was like, look at me. And he said, he is looking at her. And she was like, we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And he was like, that's the problem. And she was like, what? And he was like, that's the problem. He says that, he's just tired of women doing shit for him. He don't want it to be where somebody got to take care of him. All his life, he's had to depend on somebody. And he thought with him finally having this money, he was going to be able to do things on his own. He was like, he done been dependent on Dani, depending on Andy, depending on, Sabrina, and of course her, and then she's like, and Karen, and he's like, well, yeah, her too. So he don't want to do that, and I get it, Zach, but I need you to keep it together, honey, okay? So she just kept telling him that he was okay, and she was like, these is the people that helping you. That's how we get down. That's what we do when we're in situations. We look out for each other, and that's okay. And she was like, and the fact that you just so happen to be my man, of course I'm going to be, there for you. And he's saying that he's tired of this. And, I get it, Zach. Okay, baby, we tired too. We tired of seeing you in there, all right? And so basically, he was like, what if she can't find nothing? And she was like, all right, well, let's wait till we get there. You know what I'm saying? She was like, I'll break you out this bitch. And he was like, yeah, okay. She was saying they would be on the run. And he was like, all right, that's not funny. And she was like, oh, you think I'm joking? Okay. Like, Fatima ass is sick, okay? She was like, you think I'm joking? Like, I'm dead serious, boo. But, he was like, you better be. And she was like, I told you I was crazy. So it seemed like that actually calmed him down with her saying that, and they go ahead and embrace each other, whatever the case may be. And she still was telling him it's going to be all right. And so, we then went to, who did we go to next? We went to Andy just trying to call, Rob and see what the heck is going on. And see if she could get any more information and give him the breakdown of what the situation was at. And so he's like, Andy, and she's like, yes. He's like, do you trust this guy? She was like, yes, absolutely, I do. And he was like, all right, so I have another question for you. So she was like, all right, go ahead, shoot. What is it? He was like, you're willing to stick your neck out for him? She was like, yes, I would, absolutely. And so he was like, all right, and are you sleeping with him? And she was like, Zach? Like, no, hell no, I ain't sleeping with no damn Zach. She was like, he used to be with my, he's the ex of my best friend, basically. My best friend dated him. And so he was like, oh, okay. And he was like, so, you really going through a lot of trouble for him or whatever. He must be pretty special. And she says, yes, I believe him. And so I love that Andy said that. And I do love that she's sticking by Zach and Fatima, you know. And so he asked who the DA was. And she said DA Jefferson. And he basically told her, like, oh, he's not the DA. He's the assistant DA. And he was like, I went to school with the DA's daughter. And so she's basically like, oh, well, then can I ask you a question? And he was like, yes. And she was like, did you sleep with her? Okay. And so he was like, no. And he was like, are we getting jealous here? And she was like, no, we just asking questions. I say, yeah, both of y'all full of crap. Okay. Y'all cute and everything, but we need y'all to go ahead and focus on Zach with this part. All right. And so nonetheless, you know, they do say that they're gonna go ahead and figure this out or whatever, right? And he was basically like, give him about 10 minutes and he was gonna hit her back up and let her know what was going on. So I'm like, okay, cool, Robin. All right, Robin be about his business, so he's okay with me so far. All right, we will see as time goes on how everything comes together. Is a different story, baby. So she tells him okay when he tells her to give him, you know what I'm saying, 10 minutes. And then we get to what y'all already know I don't like and I don't care about. Q, okay, and Maurice. And so he done made breakfast, baby. It looks like some dried up daggone biscuit, all right, and some eggs and 2 pieces of bacon or whatever, and got some juice out. And so, you know, Maurice is telling him thank you. And then, you know, he's basically like saying he's going to look for a job today. So Maurice was like, okay, that's good. That's really good. So then he talking about you got any ideas? Like, boy, what? If you going to look for jobs, you sure already have some damn ideas. So Maurice tell him, you know, go down to the bank and apply. He was like, for real? You think they will hire me? He was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. They going to hire somebody that tried to go down there and rob the damn place. So he was like, you trying to be funny. And he was like, no, I'm serious. It makes perfect sense or whatever. So he says he's going to see if any restaurants will hire him for dishwashing or something. And he was like, good. That's exactly what you need to do. And, you know, supposedly Q talking about he's tired of hustling. You know, you have Calvin come out of his room and Maurice is just like, okay, good. The drunk is alive, you know, and he basically telling them like, don't start. And so Q telling him to go ahead and drink this juice that is going to help for the hangover. He was asking what's in it. And he was like, just drink it. I said, honey, no, not no juice for no hangover. All right. You need coffee or either a Pepsi. All right. Don't ask me how I know that, but definitely not no orange juice. So anyway, you know, Maurice was telling him he shouldn't trust him after last night. And he was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, you don't remember? And so of course he's telling him about them being in the bed and that he was crazy drunk or whatever. And he was like, oh no, I wasn't. Like, Calvin, well, whatever. And so he tells him about them being in his bed and he was like, oh, come on, stop lying or whatever. And of course Maurice pulls out the daggone phone. You know, he done took a picture of it. And Calvin was telling Maurice, like, don't start no rumors again. That's how him and Sabrina got into this mess in the first place. And so then when he shows him the picture, he like, what the hell? And then he was asking Q, you know, why you didn't have no pants on. And of course, when he's saying all of that, you know, Maurice was just basically like, And then, you know, Q was telling him how he was trying to help him and all of that kind of stuff. And so that was pretty much that with that, you know, he telling him he was out of it. And, he heard him throwing up and he had went in there to help him. Whatever, right? And then Calvin got ahead about his business and Maurice is just basically like, you know, pour me my juice, all right? You ain't got no damn job, so therefore you supposed to be here, you know, being the damn maid and the housekeeper and the cook. So that was that with them. You know, we then got to, who did we go to next? We got to Aaron coming and checking on Miss Karen or whatever the case may be. And you know, she was trying to be like, I don't know, Karen was just being Karen. I'm telling y'all, I'm getting tired of her behind too at the same time, honey. All right, we ain't getting much of a difference of Karen and ain't no progress or anything like that where she is concerned. So it's annoying at times, but it is what it is, right? That's the way they wrote it, okay? Ain't nothing we could do about it, but I cannot lie and say that I don't get tired of her and her foolishness. So, you know, Erin essentially comes in and, you know, she's there at the shop or whatever the case may be. And trying to check on her, whatever have you. You seeing Pam there on the phone or whatever. And, she just basically, she stopping and Pam telling him how good he look and he like you too or whatever. And, Karen was like, hey, and so he said that he accidentally took these keys last night. And she was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I thought that they was mine. And so she basically was like, I have my keys, so I don't know who keys you got, And he's like, so who are these? And she's like, I don't know. It's like, girl, it was in your house. And he's like, okay, my bad. And she said, where did you find them? And he was like, I was on her chair at her place. So he was like, I had put them in my pocket last night when I left. So then when she's looking at it, it's like, oh, he's like, do you recognize them? And then she's basically like, yeah. And then she just gave him a little smirk and was like, they're actually Zach keys. And then he's like, oh, okay. So she was like, he must have forgot them when he moved out and it probably fell in the cushion, And he was like, right. And she was like, yeah. So he was like, that's ironic. And she was like, I guess. And he was like, I just thought I might, you might have been locked up or whatever. And she was like, it's all good. I appreciate it. And so he says, he asked her how her day was going. And she was like, it's going good, She was like, I'm feeling a little sluggish and sad and, getting stuff done or whatever the case may be. So he was like, I understand that. That's all part of it. And she was like, yeah, it is. It has to be or whatever. And so, then she just kind of looking off or whatever. And he basically was like, can I see you tonight? And she was like, yeah, I'd like that, because now she going to continue to play with Aaron because she ain't got nothing else to do. So he told her he was going to come by and he'll bring some more pickles and ice cream or whatever. So she started laughing and was like, okay, pickles and ice cream. And so, he basically was all right. And then he leaves and whatever. And they say bye to each other. So, of course, when he leave, Pam got to be Pam. Okay. And so, she comes and she's basically like, well, what are you gonna do or whatever the case may be, and she's telling her, girl, that man is fine, honey. And so, Karen was like, I know. And she was like, whoa. So she, Karen told her, can you take these? So she was like, what's this? And she was like, oh, Zach left his keys. And she was like, tell him to come get them. So Pam is like, Zach? She's like, yeah. So she was like, and what was he doing at your house? And she was like, no, that was from a long time ago. Girl, Zach ain't thinking about them damn keys. He done built him up a whole new house. So she was like, well, if he didn't take them, then maybe he didn't want him. She was like, girl, just call him and tell him to get them. So she was like, no, I'll send them to him or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? Put them in the mail, boo. And she was like, oh, you want him to come here, And so Karen talking about, can you just do what I say? And she was like, well, I'll do it as soon as he gets out of jail. And she was like, what? He's still in jail? She was like, you know about it? So Karen is like, yeah. She was like, well, what happened? And so Karen is telling her that he got into a fight. And then Pam talking about, I know he got into a fight with a lawyer. So Pam was like, Karen is telling her, Pam, you really got to stop asking questions to answers you already know. She was like, I knew, but I ain't want to spill the tea first. So, right? And so she was like, just go to work. And so she was like, okay, and then, Karen just said, thank you. And she said, you're welcome. And she was like, oh, well, can you find out when he gets out? So it's like, now you want her to use stuff to your convenience or whatever. But other than that, you be like, oh, she nosy and this and that, whatever, Karen. Okay. Like I said, she just be annoying me at times, but it wasn't as bad as it can be, I guess. Right. So moving on from that, we then had, who was in next? I think we went back to, we went to the daggone bank, right? Which this was another scene that I really didn't care about, to be honest, guys. But, and we had Mr., Prince Bayo show up at Sabrina's job, right? And he's bringing her some flowers. So basically she's like, he talking about he thought he would deliver these, and he's like, oh, look at you. And of course telling her how beautiful she is and all of that stuff, asking how she doing. She says she good. So he was basically like, I love to hear that. And she was like, well, I want to talk to you. So he was asking, could she get a break? And she was like, no, I can't take a break right now, but we could go ahead and step in my office and speak. So he was like, okay, show me the way. So they go in the office, and of course she's like, why didn't you tell me about you being a prince? He's basically like, huh? Oh, that, and then she was saying how, she met these two ladies and they showed her this. And he's like, oh, wow. And she's like, so? And he was like, yes, I am a prince. he was like, it's not a big deal. It's a big deal over there, but it's not really a big deal over here, whatever. And not too many people know about it or whatever. And he was like, he didn't mean to offend her. So she was like, oh, it's okay. I just wish I would have known. And he was like, I'm terribly sorry. And then she says it's okay again that she wish she would have known. So he was like, trust me, as a small country, it's important to his mother and father, but not as important to him. He's an independent man and he's an independent thinker. And, they pretty much know that he does his own thing and that she won't be harassed by people because, again, he's not that well known outside of his country. So she's like, I see. So he was like, you say you see, but do you? And she was like, yes, I do. That pretty much was it with him. He was saying that's good to hear. And of course, when he was leaving out, Maurice wanted to be talking about some daggone, making fun, pretending that he's talking in his language or whatever. They also said that they was going to meet and have this date, and he was asking if he could send a car for her, and she was saying she wanted to drive, and he was like, no, let him send the car. Of course, Maurice go in the office to be nosy, and he was asking her, like, so you don't want to know about Calvin? And she was like, no. And he was like, I see, boo, you moving on up and you doing your own thing or whatever the case may be. You getting on some different stuff now. And she told him to go ahead and take care of the client outside and to close her door. And he paid her dust and ain't closed shit, and then went out there and told the lady, to come on, that he could help her. So, moving on from that, we had, who was it next? We had, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. I think we had Miss, Dani at the airport with the officer guy, right? And he comes in with his little suit and stuff on, and she basically was setting up the date with him, saying that they still on and that she would have answered him faster had she known that he was going to be coming, looking so good, and that she's going to get herself dolled up and they going to meet up or whatever when she get off of work for 7 o'clock. And she basically was telling him to walk away slow so that she could get a good look at him, right? And then we had the guy that is the person that's working on Zach's house outside, pissed off because he still haven't got paid. And we had Jake come in there looking for him. So basically, when Jake gets there, he's, frustrated, like, oh, I haven't seen him. I haven't heard from him. He's not answering none of my calls, because at first Jake was like, well, let me call him. He was like, well, what the heck is that going to do? I basically been calling him over and over and he haven't been answering. I've been here waiting on his ass. He owes me money. And so he was like, I was supposed to get paid today. And so, Jake is basically like, well, that's strange and that's weird. That don't sound right. That's not something that, Zach would do and all of that kind of stuff. And he asked him, how much does he owe you? And so the guy's looking at his car and he talking about he owed me $3,500 and I got to pay my, workers too. And I got my invoice. But I was kind of like, do he really owe you that? Because the way he looked at his car, like, okay, this guy got money. So Jake pulled out his checkbook and basically paid him, okay, and told him that he was going to keep the invoice and he'll work it out with Zach for Zach to pay him back. So he talking about, oh, this better not bounce. And he was like, you could have just said, damn, thank you, you asshole, So that part made me laugh. But Jake been coming through, okay. I was a little worried about Jake and sketchy on Jake, but I think Jake might ended up being a real friend. We shall see. Of course, the tables could always turn later and we could end up seeing something else. But so far from what we've been getting from him, he do seem like he's, a genuine friend to Zach. So, we got to keep our eyes out, all right? And so then he go ahead and call, Andy's office or whatever. And, of course she like, yes, this is Andy. And he's like, okay, this is Jake Bennett. And he's like, I work with Gary. So, of course, red flags is going off. And she like, okay. And he was like, I was wondering if I could speak with your assistant Fatima. And she's like, well, she's not here at the moment. Is there something I could help you with? And he was like, actually, I was looking for Zach. And so she's like, well, why? And he was like, well, I've been helping him with his portfolio. I haven't seen him in the last couple of days. I'm starting to get worried. And she was like, you work with Gary? And he's like, yes. And she's like, okay, well, what do you do for Gary? And he's like, I'm in the acquisitions division. And so she was like, interesting. She didn't say interesting. I'm saying that, but she said, So he was like, do you have any idea where he could be? So she was like, no, I don't. And he was like, okay, well, this is just not like him. And she was like, well, how long do you know him to say that this is not like him? And he was like, well, I've been knowing him for a while now. You know what I'm saying? Gary introduced us. So she was like, mm-hmm. She was like, well, how did they know each other? He said, well, we all actually played basketball together, and he asked me to help him out. And so she was like, huh, I see. You know, Andy putting the pieces together now, right? And so he was like, you know, is there any way I could get Fatima's number? And so she was like, I'll tell you what, I'll give her your number. And so he was like, okay, do you want to go ahead and take it down? And she was like, no, I don't need to, because it came up on the, you know, office line on the ID. And so she basically was like that, you know what I'm saying? She's going to look at that and, you know, write it down or whatever. And so he says, okay, so, you know, now the wheels is turning in her head. And what I really hope happens is, because she was like, what the hell was that about? I hope that her and him end up getting together and getting down to what the hell Hayden and Gary behinds, you know what I'm saying, been up to. That's what I really hope, but we shall see. So then Preston comes up and he's looking for Zach too. He's asking what's going on. You know, as soon as he get out the car, you know, Jake is asking like Preston, right? And he was like, yeah, how you doing? He was like, good, I'm here looking for Zach. So he was like, yeah, me too. So he was like, well, he's not here. So he was like, I've been calling him. And he was like, yeah, same thing. You know, Jake tells him same thing. So he was like, damn. So he was like, do you have any idea what could be going on or where he could be at? And he's like, nah, I don't have no idea. He says, well, is there anybody you could call? So Preston is thinking about it. And then he's like, oh, Lord. He's like, yeah, there's only one person and I really don't want to call them. And Jake is like, could you? And he was like, I really don't know if I should. And he was like, come on, man, like, I'm worried about him. So of course the person he's talking about is Dani, and he, you know, Preston says all right, and he was like, I really appreciate that. And so he go ahead and called Dani. And you know, when Dani answers, she's talking about, oh, something about the dead is still living or something along them lines. And she's basically like, you know, so you know what's going on, you know. And of course, Preston is like, have you seen Zach? And she was like, huh, you called me to find out where Zach is? And she was like, what am I, the Zach whisperer? And so he basically was like, nah, Dani, I'm being serious, you know. And then she was like, well, what is it? And he was like, have you seen, you know, she said, what is it? And he was like, have you seen Zach? She was like, what do you need? What's going on? He was like, I just want to talk to him. So she was like, about me, you know, just to get more bad information or more bad, you know, advice or whatever. So she was like, you're lying. And he was like, no, I'm standing here with a friend of his and we're both trying to find him or whatever. So she was like, well, I mean, Zach is in jail. And he was like, for what? You know what I'm saying? What the hell is going on? And she was like, apparently he was fighting at Andy's office. And so she was like, yeah. And she was like, with some guy named Hayden. And so, you know, he's probably still in jail. So she was like, if you was looking for more bad advice, then, you know, that's where it is and where it belongs or some crap. And so he basically was like, is anybody getting him out? And she was like, well, hell if I know. She was like, knowing Captain Fatima, she's on it. And I was like, really, Dani, what is all of that for? Like, whatever, I don't know. It just seemed like they've been having Dani character jumping back and forth 1 minute to the next. I didn't understand what that comment was for. But nonetheless, you know, she asked him if that was it and that, you know, they're not going to talk about nothing else. And he pretty much was like, yeah, that was it. And then she was like, okay. So I think she was kind of surprised with that, because I think that she still wanted him to be, you know, trying to ask her about something or talk to her about something. She was looking a little confused when he hung up the phone. So, you know, Jake was asking what she said, and he was like, he got into a fight with somebody named Hayden, and he's back in jail. So, you know, Jake is like, oh shit, Hayden, he like thinks. So then Preston tells him wait and give him a card saying take his number, and if there's anything he could do to help, let him know. So, you know, I think Zach got more people in his corner than he may realize, right? But like I said, we should see. Definitely when it comes to Preston, I don't think he's up to nothing. You know, then we have Robin give Angie an update and say, you know, that Zach is actually going to be able to get out, right? As far as that whole probation thing and the child support and all of that kind of stuff, right? But he does still have to worry about the assault charges. Those are going to stand. And so he was like, he's going to basically be released. So I was like, all right, Robin. Like I said, Robin been coming through. So she calls Fatima and asks Fatima where she's at. And she's basically like, she's home. But then when she asked her how fast can she get to the jail, she's talking about 2 seconds. She was like, no, for real, girl. She was like, no, for real, because I'm outside the jail. That part was funny to me. She was like, well, why the hell you tell me you home? And she was like, oh, I didn't want to make it seem like I'm just sitting here, waiting on him or outside the jail. She was like, but that's exactly what you doing. And so then when they hang up, Robin comes back in and says, I forgot to tell you that Hayden been accessing the federal base. And she was like, why? He was like, I don't know, but he's been looking at footage from the airport for hours. So she like, she was like, I don't understand for a client. And he was like, I don't know, and I don't want to ask, because if he is up to something, then that's going to make it, you know what I'm saying, even more funny. So she was like, yeah, knowing him, he probably is. So he was like, I just wanted to give you the heads up. So again, so far, okay, go ahead, Robin. And so he basically was like, don't tell a soul, okay? And she was like, no, I won't. And he was like, all right. He was like, we're also looking into him because he's being audited. And she was like, oh, really? Did he do something illegal? And he was like, well, that's when we're going to find out. And I sure hope so, because I don't like his ass. And she was like, join the club. Honey, none of us do, okay? I hope y'all tear his little behind up. So anyway, he says, he going to go ahead and let her do what she got to do. And that, he's going to miss her. And she was like, I'm going to miss you more. And they giving each other the googly eyes. And I'm like, okay, whatever, y'all. Okay, it's cute. All right. And right now, Robin is on my good side. And so she was like, come on, Andy, you got to get out of here. And she go running out. So, we have, who was it? We had Gary pacing back and forth in his damn office. He's still going through the motions of seeing, Andy in the apartment. So we have Aaron come in and say, what's going on? And he talking about oh, I can't believe this. Aaron is like, you called, what's going on? And he talking about, yeah, I was so damn stupid. So he was like, well, what is it? He was like, I bought her that apartment. And he was like, all right, Gary, talk to me. So he was like, I seen her having sex with that dude over there. And he was like, huh? He was like, what? He was like, how do you know that? He was like, I just know, okay. He was like, no, Gary, how do you know that? Oh, I just saw it. I just was looking and I saw it. Because he asked him about 3 or 4 times, how do you know? And he said, excuse me, he could see it through the telescope. So, Aaron go and he bend over and look through the telescope. And he's like, are you freaking crazy? Yes, Aaron, he is. Okay, you just realizing that, honey, where the hell you been? He like, shit, man, this is not good. So Gary talking about some man, I know, but I bought her that place. And he was like, yeah, you told her it was yours. And he was like, yeah, I know, I did. He was like, all right, well, it is her. So whoever she brings there, that's her damn business. You know what I'm saying? You can't, what you thought, because you bought her the place. He was like, and so she did, and you mad. And he talking about, I just thought. And he was like, you thought what? He was like, you thought that was going to make her love you? And so he talking about, I thought if I bought her the place, it would make her want to be with me. We all knew that, Gary. We all knew, seen through your ball, and knew that you was full of crap. And he was like, she don't even care about me. And how could she do me like that? You did that to your damn self, okay? Nobody felt bad for you. And so, Aaron is telling him, you cannot do stuff like that without her permission. You told her all these things, or whatever the case may be. And, he was like, you got to calm your behind down or whatever. And so Aaron was like, Gary's telling Aaron, you going to tell me to stay calm? And he was like, yeah, calm down. And he was like, well, what are you going to do or whatever? And so Gary talking about some, I don't know. And he was like, all right, well, Aaron is telling him, before you do anything or even say anything, you need to make sure that you're completely calm. And so Gary talking about some, all right. And he was like, no, I need to talk to her, and grabbing his coat to go out. And Gary is still telling him, like, calm your ass down. And he's still telling him that he bought her that place. And he was like, I understand that, but you can't go over there demanding things, and definitely can't let her know that you done saw what she did, because he was like, first off, the first thing you should be doing is getting rid of this. And so Gary was saying no, that he wasn't going to get rid of it, basically talking about the telescope. And Aaron was like, no, this is going to stop, okay? You gonna get rid of this. And so I was glad that at least Aaron was coming in there and talking some logical sense to him. But like I said, even though Aaron is telling him the truth, he not gonna listen. Okay, Aaron, you don't know who the hell you dealing with. And so he was like, you're gonna calm down. You're not gonna go to her place like that. We're gonna get rid of this. You know what I'm saying? Gary talking about, I'm calm, I hear you, or whatever. And he was like, I want to know that you hear me, because this is what we're going to do. You got me? He was like, enough of this or whatever. So Gary is saying, yeah, that he do understand and he do got him. I'm like, don't believe him, Aaron. Don't believe him for a second. That boy is sick, okay? And so Aaron just standing there looking at him like, if he can't believe how crazy Gary is, well, honey, that's your wake-up call, okay? Because Gary is crazy as shit. And so then we get to, and none of us is surprised about that. We all called it and all knew that Gary thought that he was going to be able to manipulate Andy. And to be truthful, I thought he was going to be able to manipulate her too. I'm surprised she didn't already go back to him. So I have to give her some type of credit for that, all right? He thought he was going to be able to get her back, and she was just going to take him back like a sucker or whatever, because he bought her the place. So the truth just came out with that, right? So then we get Andy going to the jail. She's there with Fatima. She's telling her it's no problem. And, Fatima's telling her you don't have to stay. And she was like, are you sure? She was like, yeah. And she was like, no. She was like, are you two going to be Bonnie and Clyde, or y'all going to behave? And then she was like, no, we good, girl. We good. So she was like, okay, all right, well, then I'm going to go. She was like, but, please tell Robin I said thank you. So Andy was like, all right, I will, She was like, all cheese. And so Fatima was like, what's that little smile going on? So she was like, well, the smile is that I will tell him, okay? So she was like, oh, shit. She was like, girl. And then Andy's like, stop. And so she was like, Fatima asked her, are you going to see her later? She was like, if I, see him later. She was like, if I want to. And she was like, well, Gary bought that place. And she, Andy talking about that's the true test, but I hope Andy don't get messed up because of this whole situation, because I don't put nothing past Gary. He's dangerous. And so she said, do you sure you want to do that? And she said, yes, she was. So Fatima was telling her to be careful too. And she was like, I will. I got this, right? And so she was like, if you need any help, call backup. So Andy was saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I ain't calling you for nothing. Then as soon as she stood up, Zach was coming out. So that did make me happy that at least Zach got out this daggone episode and we didn't have to wait 1,000 years for him to come out. And Andy told him that, she was going to leave them to it or whatever. So, of course, they happy to see each other. They hugging up on each other and all of that and talking about, oh, my baby and what's up, jailbird, two birds of a feather flock together and all of that kind of stuff. And he cheated from ear to ear. He was all smiling at Andy now, whereas the last time he was around her, he wanted to kind of curse her out. He was telling her thank you too, and she left them. And so, he was saying, you did what you did for me and I did what I did for you. And again, like you say, two birds of a feather go to jail together. So then, he told her, let's get out of here. And she was like, we'll be going. And he basically was like, still saying he have this surprise for her. All right. He didn't want to let her know yet. Right. He was like, you can't ruin my surprise. And so then they got ahead and leave. Right. He was like, I'm going to show you. So she was like, all right, So here we get to this last damn scene, y'all, with freaking Hayden. All of a sudden, he's able to just freaking look up in the damn computer for him. We don't know how long he's supposedly been looking through these damn files, but he's like, flight manifest. Let's see. Oh, what was you doing there? There it is. Typing, let me see. Airport video. And he's able to pull up the freaking senator's wife that was talking to Zach in the, airport. Oh, what was you doing on that flight? And all of this. And he's like, wow. So I'm like, really? And he was like, what y'all talking about? Oh, that's probably how he got the info. She gave it to him. I'm like, really? It's going to be that, simple? He's talking about, why are you coming back? And so now supposedly Hayden done put it all together. He was like, that's how you did this shit. And so I don't know where it's going to go from there, you guys. But I know that I want Hayden dead. Y'all could just go ahead and kill him already. I'm so sick of him. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm more sick of him or more sick of Gary. But y'all could run both of them over with a damn bus as far as I'm concerned. But that was the episode, you guys. Tell me what you think about it. Where do you think this is going to go with Hayden? Is Robin going to be able to come through with some proof that his behind been doing illegal stuff too? Is Aaron going to be able to calm Gary behind down? Are we ever gonna get a damn DNA test? Like, let me know what y'all think, what y'all thought about this episode. If you liked it, you didn't like it, all that good stuff. Let's discuss. Put it in the comments. All right. Like, comment, share, subscribe if you are so inclined. All right. Till next.